Hello, welcome to Thursday's lecture. Today we're going to talk about inverse functions, and now we're going to talk about something really abstract. Not that calculus wasn't abstract before, but we're going to talk about something that's even more abstract than that. Okay, so I need you to start thinking and being mathematically intelligent today. Okay, inverse functions, you may remember or may not remember. I know I taught some of you honors pre-calculus. Inverse functions are functions that are sort of like opposites of each other. Most people like to say opposites. In an inverse function, you don't have to write this down, but if in a function, say the function has the point 1 comma 2, in the inverse it would have 2 comma 1. Or in a function had the point 4 negative 1, the inverse would have negative 1 4. That's how you define the inverse. Inverse functions take a function and they essentially just flip x and y. So x and y flipped, those are inverses of each other. Another property, another way to think about it, is if I put the function inside the other function, if I put the inverse inside the function, I get x. Or another way to put it, if I take the inverse of itself, I get x. So this is just another way to think about, another definition of inverses. Okay. So an inverse function, you can think of it as two ways, and that's what property 2 is. The domain, the x, is the y of the inverse, or the y is the x of the inverse. So that's just what I just taught you that. I wrote the example here, but another way to say the inverse is this. So two ways to say the inverse. If I put the inverse inside a function, I get x. Or if I take the inverse of a function and get x, that's one way to say the inverse. Another way to say it is the y is the x, the x is the y of the other function, or the y is the x in the other function. Okay. The third way to define the inverse, and then these are just three ways of saying the exact same thing, is that if f of x contains the point, and obviously the inverse, instead of AB, will become BA. Okay. The slopes, how are the slopes related? The slope of inverse functions are the reciprocal of the inverse function. So for example, if the slope of a function is 2, okay, the inverse would have a slope of 1/2, the reciprocal. Okay. Or if the slope was 3/4, its inverse would have a slope of 4/3. So, three ways to define the inverse. Plugging it into each other gives you x and y's are flipped, or the slopes are reciprocals. And I think you guys are bright enough to understand the three. All just three ways to define what exactly is an inverse. Okay. Here's what you're going to learn, or here's what you're going to take away for calculus. Okay. If f of an x and g of x are inverse functions, and you have a point a, b, then, and this is where it gets abstract, so you're going to have to follow me, or at least just box this. This is the only formula you're learning today. Then g prime of b, okay, g prime of b is equal to f prime of a. Okay, so that is the only formula you need to know for this section. And it's very abstract, and it's going to be hard for you to understand. You're just going to have to practice a lot. G prime of b equals 1 over f prime of a. Okay, so let's do some examples. If f and g are differentiable, and f of g of x equals x, so this whole statement just means you're allowed to take a derivative, and this means f and g are inverses. Remember, that was our definition, so the only reason why they mentioned this is it says f and g are inverses. If f of 2 equals 10, and f prime of 2 equals 8, what are the values of g of 10 and g prime of 10? Okay, so a little bit pretty abstract if you think. Okay, this is how I always start these problems. Okay, first of all, I need to figure out what a comma b is. Okay, so a comma b is like for a regular function, what's x and y? So here's my regular function f. Remember, would you agree that my x and y, my x is 2 and my y is 10? Or in other words, my a is 2 and my b is 10. Okay, so far? Okay. So remember, here's my formula. A and b is on the graph f, right? So if this is f, I decided that 2 is a and 10 is b. Okay, hopefully you guys understand. Okay, so this is an f. So if g is the inverse, would you agree that point 2 comma 10, okay, is 10 comma 2 on g? Remember, they're inverses of each other, right? So for the first question, it says what's g of 10? G of 10 is 2. So that should be the easy one. If f of 2 is 10, g of 10 should be 2. It's basically, it flipped, right? So that's the easy one. The harder one is g prime of 10. Okay? That's when I'm going to rely on my formula. Okay? So here's my formula, right? G prime of 10. Okay? Well, we said that b is 10, right? So in my formula, so basically I'm going to take this and put it here. I'm looking for g prime of 10. Okay? That's what I want to know what it is. That's the same thing as 1 over f prime of a. And remember, we said a is 2. So all I did is plug the b and the a into the formula. So you guys follow so far? And remember, I got a and b because that was my definition given in the problem. So a is 2, b is 10. Okay. So here's the formula. Remember I told you the only formula you need to know? And I'm looking for g prime of 10. To get g prime of 10, it's the same thing as 1 over f prime of 2. Okay. And you may be saying, how do I get f prime of 2? It was also given our problem. It says f prime of 2 equals 8. So g prime of 10 is actually just 1/8. Which makes sense. Remember I told you the slopes are reciprocals? So if the slope at 2 is 8, the one at g is 1/8. And that's how you do these types of problems. Okay? It's not difficult. The problems are actually very simple. But abstract thinking will probably slow you guys down or might confuse a lot of you. Okay? Let's just do, let's see, there's some other problems here. Maybe we can do 3 today and maybe you guys can understand it. This one says let f be a differential function so that f of 2 equals 5, f of 5 is 14, f prime of 2 is negative 7, f prime of 5 is negative 9. The function g is differentiable, that means I'm allowed to take the derivative, and g of x equals f of negative 1x. This is just another way of saying g and f are inverses. What is the value of g prime 5? I want to know what g prime 5 is. Okay? So if I want to know g prime 5, would you agree, you know, in my formula, if I'm looking for g prime 5, would you agree that b is 5? Right? Here's the formula, g prime b. I'm looking for g prime 5. b is 5. I need to know what a is. Okay? So what I'm looking for is, in my f function, when is my y-coordinate 5? Okay? And I see my first, first given here. See how it says f of 2 equals 5? So if b is 5, that must mean that a is 2. Okay, so far? So let's plug this into the formula. G prime of 5 equals 1 over f prime a, and we just said a is 2. So remember, how did I get this? We were looking for g prime 5. In my formula, 5 is now b. Since I know 5 was b, I need to find what is a. And of all the things that are given to me, see these f's, this is the only point or the only given where the y-coordinate is 5, which means a has to be 2. So now it's just another simple problem. G prime 5 equals 1 over f prime 2. Well, if I look back at my problem, f prime 2 is negative 7. So the only thing I have to do is just plug in negative 7, and that's my answer. Okay. So you may notice that they give you a lot of extraneous information. I never needed this, but they throw that in there just to throw you off. So all you got to do, again, the only difficult part is defining or finding what is A and what is B. Okay? Obviously, you guys are bright enough that I go on and I move on to a little bit more challenging problems. Okay? But I think this is the only one that I want to do for you guys today. Yeah, just one more. Okay? It says let f be the function defined as, or maybe I could do these two. Let f be the function defined as this. Okay? If g of x equals f of negative 1x, again, this just tells me that f and g are inverses, and g6 equals 0, what is the value of g prime 6? Okay. So if you had to guess, look, it says what's g prime 6? Would you agree that b, sorry for coughing, b is 6 based on the formula? Question is, what is a going to be? And now this is where you're going to get confused. Look, they didn't give me the f functions anymore. In the previous problems, remember they gave me, remember I had g prime 5, and I knew it was 2 because they gave me that thing? In this problem, they gave me a and b, 2 and 10. But you'll notice there is no f in this problem. Okay, so I just have to look at what they give me and see what I can understand. Well, in this piece of information they give me here, do you see how it says g6 equals 0? So that tells me that b is 6, and since they're inverses, that means a has to be 0. Like so. So remember, I got b because it wants g prime of 6, so that must be b. And I got a because since these are inverses, this must be b, and this must be a. In the previous problem, when I had f, this was a, and this was b. In other words, this is b, and this is a, because they're inverses. Okay. Now, if I want g prime of 6, I'm going to need to do 1 over f prime of 0. In the previous two problems, remember they gave me f prime of 0, right? Do you see how they didn't give us any f prime of 0 or any f? I can't just plug it in. That's what made this problem easy. But they did give me f of x, right? So I think you guys are bright enough to think about this. Can't I take the derivative of f of x and then plug in 0, and that's how I'm going to get this number right here? Yeah, I could do that. Okay. So if I want f prime of 0, let's take the f prime. Let's take the derivative of this one. Derivative of e to the 3x is 3e to the 3x. Derivative of x squared, negative 2x. And derivative of 5 is 0. Okay. If I want f prime of 0, all I'm going to do is plug in zeros. If I have a 0 here, e to the 0 is just 1, which is just 3. Then 3 minus 2 times 0. Or how about this? So I'll plug in zeros, this goes away, this just becomes 1. F prime of 0 is just 3. So my answer is just 1/3. Okay. So this problem, when I added one layer of difficulty, they didn't give me the f's. So I had to go out and search for the a. And I didn't get an f prime. They did give me f, so I had to take the derivative to find this f prime of 0. Okay. Let's do one last one, because I think you guys might slowly understand this. Okay. In this question, it says, let f be the function f of x equals ln x plus 5. If g of x equals f of negative 1x, again, they're inverses of each other. That's just a declaration that they're inverses, or this is an inverse declaration that these are inverse problems. What is the value of g prime of 8? Okay, so what do I know? What's a and what's b? Well, that's for g prime of 8, so I know for a fact that b is 8. Question is, how do I find a? This problem, even more so, has even less information than all the other three problems combined. How do I find a? Well, they did give me f of x, right? And they did give me the b, or they did give me the y value 8. So can't I set this equal to 8 and solve for x? That's how I'm going to solve for a. 8 equals ln x plus 5. Okay. I'll subtract 5 from both sides. Okay, so far? And then some of you may have forgot how to do this, but to get rid of an ln, you have to do an e. These cancel. So x is e to the 3rd power. So now you found a and you found b. So again, one layer of information they took away from you. They only gave you b. And I had to find a by putting it into the f problem. So if f of x equals ln x plus 5, I set this equal to 8 and solved for x, or I solved for that a. So now I'm sort of happy. Okay, I got that down. I will plug in, or I'll start the formula, the only formula that you need to know. g prime of 8 is equal to 1 over f prime of e to the third. Okay. Did the problem give me f prime? No, they didn't give us f prime. So you may notice I'm going to have to solve for it. Okay. F prime of x is equal to the derivative 1 over x, and derivative of 5 is just 0. So the derivative is just 1 over x. If I want f prime of e to the third, I will plug in e to the third. So the answer is just 1 over e to the third. So now, when I plug this in, the answer is 1 over e to the third, or making this simplified and cleaner, 1 over e to the third is just e to the third. So that is g prime of 8. Okay, so that is how you find inverse functions, just like we've been doing all week. Again, this is the Thursday lecture. What I want you to do is start doing some practice problems in your packet. Obviously, I don't want you to do the ones that we didn't do. Like this one says an equation for the line tangents. We're not going to do that. But keep practicing. Keep putting an update on Schoology. And that's it. Thank you for watching this lesson.